Alright guys, so we just finished modeling out our bow object. In this video we're going to go ahead and model out some pieces that go with the bow but aren't necessarily a part of the bow. We're going to model out an arrow, because who wants a bow without an arrow? And we're going to go ahead and model out the string. We're also going to rig it so that the player can draw back that string on any bow you want. These pieces are going to be completely modular and they'll work with any bow that you model out or that you already have. Let's jump into it. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and set up our string object for our bow. This is going to be a generic string. It'll be usable for any bow you want to make in the future. That's why we did it this way instead of attaching the string directly to the bow object when we modeled that out. So we're going to start out with a box object. So Shift A, Mesh, Cube. Then we're going to go ahead and thin it out a little bit on everything except for the Z-axis. So S, Shift Z to scale it on everything but the Z-axis. We're going to bring it down a little bit. I don't want to bring it down too much because then it'll be too difficult to see some things. We'll just stretch it out later and thin it out a little bit later in the video. So we're going to go ahead and add a modifier here. It's called Subdivision Surface. Let's disable that modifier so we can't see it right now by hitting this little icon here. Alright, now let's go into our edit mode and let's add a loop cut here, and then let's delete those bottom faces there by going back to our select object, our select tool, delete these faces. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and add a mirror modifier. Mirror on the Z-axis only. Alright, so now we only have to work with this top half of the string and everything. We don't have to worry about the bottom half since it's symmetrical. Let's go ahead and add a loop cut right here in the center. Then we're going to move it. So G, Z, move it up this way. And if we turn back on our subdivision surface, you can see now it's looking a lot better. As we move that edge loop around, you can see it makes that string a bit of a harder edge. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and apply those two modifiers. So Tab, Apply, and Apply. Alright. Now we've got something that's looking pretty good. Let's go back into our edit mode by hitting Tab. Let's get rid of this here. Get rid of this here. And I think that looks pretty good for what we need. Let's see what happens if we get rid of these. Let's see what Blender tries to do. Alright, that looks pretty good too. So we'll get rid of that one as well, and let's flatten out this vert here by going into our vertex mode. Let's switch this here to vertex. Then we're going to turn up on our snapping. G, Z to move it downward on the Z-axis. Put it right there. And we're going to need to get rid of those on the bottom as well. These lines, we're going to need to do the same thing. Control X. So we probably shouldn't have applied our mirror modifier so soon, but no big deal. Alright, G, Z, and turn on our snapping. Alright. And let's scale down the middle just a tad. Like that, make it a little straighter. Alright. Now we're going to go ahead and stretch it out like we were talking about earlier. Whoops. Let's select everything, hit A, scale it on everything except for the Z, bring it down a bit, and let's bring it up, scale it on the Z specifically, so S, Z, and bring it out. Now let's scale it on the Z-axis, on everything except the Z-axis again, so S, Shift Z. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now let's tab into our object mode, and while we're at it, let's just smooth it. So right click, shade smooth. Now it's got a nice smooth look to this string. Okay. And let's unwrap it, which should be pretty easy. It's just a cylinder. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this vert, and I'm going to focus on it by hitting the period on the number pad. All right, and let's select this whole area here. And this is just a box object, so we should be able to unwrap it pretty easily. So we're just going to select this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge, and this edge and this edge. Control E, mark seam. All right, and we're going to select this edge. And this edge, Control E, mark seam. Then on the bottom side, let's focus on that. I'm gonna select this, this. Oops, not that one. These edges, Control E, mark seam. All right, and let's hit. Let's see here. Let's go back into our object mode. Hit Control A. Apply rotation and scale. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and unwrap it. So select everything with A. Hit U. Unwrap. UV editing, and you can see we have it unwrapped here. Now I'm going to go up to this selection area here. Hit this little icon to select the whole island, and hit G, X, and move it to the center, just because I like to center my UVs. Now let's go back into our layout. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and rig this so that we can actually draw this string back. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to create an armature object. So Shift A, armature. All right, and this is going to be the root bone. So let's go ahead and rename this bone right now. Go over here to your hierarchy, armature, bone. Let's call it root bone, just like that. Now we're going to rotate this bone on the x-axis. So R, X, 90, all right? And let's double check our string and make sure that our forward is to the left. So let's click on this guy, hit our little tool over here, a gizmo tool. Yes, and we can see that our forward direction is to the left. All right, so let's go ahead and select our bone object again, and let's move it to the right, so G, Y, just so that the ball lines up with the middle of the string there. All right, now we're going to go into our edit mode. All right, we're going to select this guy, and we're going to extrude it. So we're going to hit E, Y, extrude it along the y-axis, just like that. And while we're here, we're going to select the whole bone, and we are going to change its relations here. Okay? Yeah, under the bone symbol here, we go to relations. Then we untick this connected checkbox here. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to move this bone without altering this bone here. So if we hit G, you can see we can move this bone wherever we want. All right? So that when we draw it back, we can hit G, Y, we can draw it back here in pose mode, and this bone won't be affected. All right. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and rename that bone. Instead of root bone 001, we're going to call it string bone. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and tab into our object mode. Select our string object. Then we're going to go down to, here we go, this right here, this little symbol right here. This is going to be our vertex groups, okay? And we're going to tab into our edit mode so that we can see, oh, you know what? We skipped a step. What we need to do first is parent the string object here to our bone objects here, our armature object. So we're going to select our string object, shift select our bones, hit Control P with automatic weights. All right. Now we should be able to see our vertex groups on our string. So select our string, tab into our edit mode, and we can see in this little tab here, we have our root bone and our string bone. And you've also got these little buttons here with this weight variable, all right? So what we're gonna do is we are going to select our root bone here, all right? And we are going to select our middle area here. Let's switch to our vertex mode first. Okay, then I selected a vertice inside here, the period to focus on it. All right, now let's select this whole edge loop right here. Okay, and we are going to hit remove. Okay, so now this bone here, this root bone, should not affect those middle vertices at all if we move it. Then we're going to go ahead and select our string bone. All right, we're going to select all of our vertices with A. Then we're going to remove. So this string bone shouldn't affect anything on that string. All right, now we're going to go ahead and select that same edge loop that we removed from the root bone. Alt select. All we have selected is these vertices here. Then we're going to hit assign. And now this root bone should only affect those vertices, so that when we draw back, so let's tab into our object mode, select our armature, pose mode. When we draw back this object here, G, Y, the string is affected. And those mid vertices, you can see these vertices stay where they are on the ends, and this one draws straight back, and that's exactly what we want for our bow object. The hand is going to be drawing this back. It can draw it back in any angle we want, and the string object should be just about finished. All we need to do now is save it, Control S, desktop, let's call it modular string. All right, now let's export it. File, export. You know what? Before we export it, let's rename some stuff. I just realized we still have this thing called cube. So let's rename this to string. Oops, that's sting. String mesh. All right. It looks like it has a modifier on it. What's that modifier? Is that just the armature modifier? It is, it's no big deal. Object, modifier, it is just armature. All right, let's hit Control S one more time to save over our modular string.blend file. Now let's hit File, Export, FBX, to the desktop as modular string.fbx. All right, and then Phil will show you how to bring this into Unity, and he'll show you how to match it up with your 3D bow model and how to basically make it work so you have a working VR bow. All right, so now that we've got our string modeled out for our bow, the next step is to get our arrow, because who wants to use a bow without arrows, right? So let's hit Shift A, start out with a cube object, just like we did with the string. Only this time we're going to scale it on the y-axis instead of the z-axis. So S, Y, all right? And then we're going to add a subdivision surf. So modifier, subsurf, all right? And just like the string, what we're going to do is we're going to disable it with this little image here. And then we're going to go into our edit mode, add a loop cut to right about there, and add a center loop cut and delete those faces over there. Well, first thing we got to do is switch to our select here, select all those faces, X, faces, and then go ahead and add our mirror modifier as well on the y-axis this time. All right, now if we turn this back on, you can see we have a nice nice cylindrical shape here. All right, and the reason we did it this way instead of just creating a cylinder is because we want to try and keep it super low poly, and I just like the way the geometry works out by adding the subsurf modifier rather than using an actual cylinder. So let's go ahead and apply our modifiers. So apply, apply. You know what? We don't want to apply the mirror modifier yet. That's a mistake we made in the string video. So what we're going to want to do is go to our line, or our edge select here, hit Alt, select that whole edge loop, this whole edge loop, and I'm thinking this whole edge loop as well, this area here. Let's hit Control X to dissolve those edge loops. Now we have a somewhat low poly looking shape here. Then we're going to go ahead and select this vertex here, and let's hit G, X, bring that, not X, sorry, Y, bring that in a little bit. And I forgot to turn on my snapping here, so I'm going to turn on that snapping. Bring this drop down here and select vertex. Now we're going to hit G, Y, and snap it to these vertices here. So now we've got a completely flat edge here. Alright, and now it looks like this part's a little thick in the center. So let's scale that down just a bit, make it a little straighter. Alright. That looks pretty good. Now let's apply our mirror modifier. Whoops. Need to tab into object mode, apply. And while we're in object mode, we might as well go to shade smooth. So right click, shade smooth. Alright, and I don't like this end down here being shaded smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and select those faces. Hit right click and shade flat. And do the same thing for this side. Select these, right click, shade flat. See what's going on here. How come we have two edge loops? Oh, okay then. That's a little strange. Okay, so we're going to select these. You know what? Before we select those, what we're going to do is we're going to go into options, turn on auto merge. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move this edge loop here on top of this edge loop to merge those vertices. So we're going to hit G, Y. We have to have snapping on to do this, by the way. So make sure you got that snapping turned on up there and you have it set to vertexes. All right. Now let's just go ahead and recenter that. So G, Y, just about perfectly centered. And you know what? Now that I think about it, we don't even need this edge loop. So just hit Control X. Get rid of that guy. All right? Because this is just going to be an arrow. It doesn't need to bend in the middle like the string did. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is stretch this out. Make it look more like an arrow instead of just like a cylinder. Select it all. Scale it on about everything except for the Y. So Shift Y. Scale it down. Just like that. That looks about right for an arrow. Alright, now we're going to work on the arrow head. So to do that, you know what, before we work on that, let's rename the cube. We don't want to call it cube. We want to call it arrow shaft. There we go. Now we're going to work on the arrowhead. So to do that, we're going to go to our face mode, select these faces here, and let's make sure it's on our left is our forward direction for the arrow, and it's not. Okay, so the forward direction is over here, so we're going to want to select these faces. Boom, 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 boom. All right. Then we are going to we're going to duplicate these faces and then create a new object from that. So we're going to hit Shift D to duplicate those faces, and you can see now we have these faces that aren't connected to anything. They're just kind of floating around. So right click to leave them exactly where they are. Then we're going to hit P to separate them from the selection. And now you can see we have two objects over here, arrow shaft and arrow shaft 1. This one here, this bottom one, is going to be our arrowhead. So let's rename that to arrowhead. Okay. And now let's just have that selected. So we have to go into our object mode, select the arrowhead. It'll allow me to select it in the hierarchy. That's easier. Now let's tab back into our edit mode, select all those faces, and let's extrude it along the y-axis. Okay, and this is going to be like the little connector piece for the arrowhead. Is that not flat? It doesn't look flat to me. Scale it on the y-axis to 0. Yes, that was not flat. All right, let's do the same thing for these faces in here. Scale it on the y-axis and then hit 0. There we go. Now it should be perfectly flat. And now the actual arrow shaft is not flat. So let's go ahead and fix that by going into tabbing into our object mode, selecting this guy, and selecting these faces. Scale it on the y-axis to 0. Now it's perfectly flat. And let's do the same thing on the other end as well. Scale it on the y-axis to 0, perfectly flat. Let's go back to the arrowhead now. All right, let's hit 0, focus on that guy. And this is going to be the connector piece right here, the piece that would go over the arrow shaft to make sure the arrowhead doesn't fall off. So now we need to work on the actual sharp part of the arrowhead. So let's tab into our edit mode. Let's select these faces here. Oops, moved it on the x-axis. Select these faces here. Extrude it along the y-axis, out like this. All right, now let's figure out how we want to tackle the sharp pieces. I think what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to maybe just select these pieces here. Yeah, these faces. And let's extrude them. Hit right click to leave those faces right where they are, and scale them just on the z-axis to bring them up like this. All right. That looks pretty good. Now we are going to extrude forward maybe? Let's see, let's select all these faces, extrude it along the y-axis, bring it forward, scale it down. It looks pretty good. Not very flat. All right, let's figure out how we're going to flatten that out. I think we can just go ahead and select these here, like so. Scale them. S, scale them out. See how that looks. All right, that looks all right. It doesn't need to be ultra realistic. Because it's going to be such a small piece, the player probably won't ever even see the arrowhead really. Let's select these faces here. Getting closer, just some tiny faces. It really does not want to select those faces, does it? Use our box select. And then just deselect all these. Oops. All right. That looks pretty good. What happens if we, nah, that's not gonna work. All right, let's just scale it down. Hit G, Y, move it forward a little bit. It's a good looking arrowhead. Go ahead and select this edge here. I'm not sure we really need it. And Control X and see what it looks like. It looks pretty good without that line there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now maybe we want to increase this size a little bit, or the scale of this on the z-axis. So SZ, bring that guy up, make it a little sharper. And I know some arrowheads go back a little bit, so maybe GY, something like that might look kind of cool. Yeah, and then we're going to want to do the same thing for these verts here. GY, bring those back. Alright, that's a pretty good looking arrowhead. Okay. See, how are we going to unwrap this guy though? I'm thinking maybe we unwrap this piece here separately. And you know what? We don't need those faces inside either, because it's perfectly lined up with the arrow shaft. So let's just select these faces, hit X, delete those guys. Now, I think what we can do is, you know what, now I think about it, we don't need these faces either. We can just merge everything in the center. So let's select all these. Okay, let's go to our vertex, Control V. Actually, Alt M, sorry, Alt M at center. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, now how are we gonna unwrap this guy? We're gonna, I think I want to select all these here. Okay, and we're gonna go Alt E, mark seam, and we're gonna select this edge right in here. Alt E, mark seam. Okay, so and that's gonna unwrap this little connector piece right here, completely separate from the actual arrowhead itself. Now let's see how we want to do this one. I'm thinking this area here. Let's hit Alt E, mark that seam. And that should unwrap it pretty flat along that area. You know what? I don't even think we need to mark that, because it's gonna unwrap in a circular shape, right? So let's hit Control Z to unmark that guy. But I think we do want to mark these edges here. Control E, mark those seams. All right. And let's go back into our object mode, so tab. Now let's apply our rotations and scale. So Control A, rotation and scale. All right. Now we're gonna hit A to select all of our faces, hit U, unwrap, go to your UV editing and see what we got. Okay, so this is the connector area. This is the actual arrowhead, and this is the backs of the arrowhead, right up in here. I think that looks all right. With Substance Painter, it's not really a huge deal to have an amazing looking UV. You can just use triplanar to get rid of a lot of the seams. Alright, I think that's gonna work. Alright, now let's change our shading to smooth, so we have a smoother looking arrowhead. And let's go ahead and select some of the faces that we don't want to look super smooth like that. Maybe these. And let's change their shading to flat. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks alright. Okay. So now we got the arrowhead done. Now we're gonna need to move on to the fletchings. How do we want to handle the fletching? I'm thinking maybe planes. Let's just do planes for the fletchings, and then we can use a alpha texture to just create like feathers or something like that. Also, I just remembered we're gonna need to add like a little indent here for the string to go into, like a little notch. I know not all arrows have them, but a lot of them do, so I'm just gonna add it. It's super easy to do. We just select these edges, hit G, Y, bring it in, and now we have a tiny little notch right there. Alright, not that big a deal, but I mean it adds to the aesthetic a little bit. Maybe make it a little bigger, something like that. Okay, so planes. We're going to use planes for these fletchings. Let's see here. I think what we're going to do is temporarily add some edge loops to this. So bring this guy back, right about there. Put this guy right about there, maybe? Is that a good size for the fletchings? Maybe make it a little bigger. So go into our select all these edges with Alt Select, G, Y, move forward a little bit. And those look like some pretty good sized fletchings right there. The space between these two edges is what I'm talking about for the size. All right. So now let's just flatten out these this edge loop by selecting the whole edge loop, scale it on the y-axis to 0. Do the same thing for this one. Select it, scale it, y-axis 0. So now those are perfectly flat. All right. And our fletchings are gonna go. Where are our fletchings gonna go? Like here, and here, and then the center one here. Those look like a pretty decent spacing. We can fix the spacing later if they're too close. I feel like these two might be a little too close. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit E to extrude those edges, and then we're gonna hit right click to keep them in the same spot. All right, and then we're gonna scale them. Scale, Shift Y to scale them on everything except the y-axis. Bring those edges out, just like that. And I'm gonna make them a pretty good size, like overly sized. Yeah, like that. That looks pretty good. I think that looks pretty good for the fletchings, honestly. That's not too bad. What we're going to do is we're going to separate them though into a separate object, so it's not part of the actual arrow shaft. So we're going to select these faces, boom, boom, boom. We're going to hit P, selection. Now we have these two over here, these two arrow shaft objects. Here's the fletching, select that. Call it arrow fletchings, just like that. We're going to tab into our object mode. Go ahead and select this, G, move it, make sure everything's looking good, and it is. All right, let's select our arrow shaft, hit tab, and let's get rid of these edges that we added. We don't need them, it's unnecessary geometry. So, boom, boom, Control X to get rid of those. I think that looks pretty good for our arrow object. Oh, wait a second. What are these doing here? Thought I just got rid of those. Control X, get rid of those. All right. Now all we need to do is unwrap this object here, I believe. We haven't unwrapped this guy yet. So let's select that one. That edge, sorry. This edge, this edge, this edge, this edge. You should be able to unwrap it like a box, basically. Mark these seams. Alright, let me hit a period to focus on that. We're gonna need to select that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. Okay. Control E to mark those seams. Now when we unwrap this guy, oh, non-uniform scale, so we're gonna tab into our object mode, Control A, apply rotation and scale. All right. Now we're going to tab back into our edit mode, make sure we have everything selected, hit U, unwrap, go into our UV editing. All right, select our island selection tool up here. Select this guy, hit GX, center it, and that looks pretty good for the UVs of the arrow shaft. Now let's go ahead and unwrap our fletchings. This should be pretty simple. Tab, select everything, and just hit U. We don't need to mark any seams. Oh, well, we forgot to apply the scale again. Control A, rotation and scale. Now tab back into edit mode, hit U, unwrap. And they're not all the same size. That is unfortunate. Let's see here. Let's rotate this guy about 90 degrees. Hit G. Move that guy down there. Then we're going to go ahead and hit UV up here. Constrain to image bounds so that we can't move this guy off. No matter how far we move it, it sticks on the UV. All right. Now I'm going to select everything. Let's see if I can find out where they move the average island scales to. UV maybe? Here we go, average island scales. And it did the same thing. UV, pack islands, there we go. Let's go ahead and check our actual objects here and make sure they are the same size. Is this one bigger? This one might be a little bigger. Yeah, I believe this guy is actually a little bigger. That's what's happening. Let's go back into our layout, go into our edit mode, select that edge there, bring it in. G, X, bring that guy in a little bit. We want them relatively the same size. They don't need to be exactly perfect because the player isn't really going to notice it too much. Especially because this fletching here will be on the outside of the object. The player will mostly see this side here. GX, move this guy in a little bit. No, it's a little too far. Control Z, GX, and tad more. Bring this guy up, select this edge, hit GG, bring up a bit. That's too far. Alright, I think that's pretty good. So let's select everything and unwrap it again and see what that looks like. There we go. Now they're more even now. So now we're going to hit R, rotate 90 degrees, hit G, bring it down, and we're going to go ahead and pack the islands here. Uh-oh, that doesn't look good. UV average islands. Oh, I didn't select everything. That's what happened. Select everything with all. Hit U. Pack island scales. U. Average island scales. Now let's go ahead and pack the island scales. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. That looks pretty good. You know what we might want to do is just move these rectangles on top of each other. No, you know what? We don't want to do that because we might want to add some unique shapes or some unique textures to the individual fletchings. If we packed them on top of each other, it would just use the same texture for all the fletchings. So I'm going to leave them separate like this, and then Steven can decide during texturing if he wants all the fletchings to be exactly the same or if he wants to add some variation to them. All right? And I believe we may be good in terms of geometry on the arrow. Let's do one last check, one last look around. That looks pretty good. Yep, pretty good. All right, so now let's hit Control S, save our project. Let's save it as arrow. Save blend file. Now let's export it. So file, export, .fbx as arrow.fbx. All right, and this looks pretty good. I think this arrow is done, and we can go ahead and move on to texturing, and Phil will show you how to implement it programmatically so you have a working bow and arrow in your game. See you next time. Laters.
So don't stop, get it, until you're cheddar-headed. Watch the way I navigate.